All right, joining us today on Pirate Radio Live, former Pirate QB, host of the Holton Ahlers Show, co-host on the U.S. Sailor Fifth Quarter Call-In Show. He is Holton Ahlers. Holt, how you doing, man?
Clint, doing good, man. Hope you are.
I am. I feel like we're just having one long, ongoing conversation because we talked to you Monday. After that, I listened to you and Caden. That was an awesome show. Had some great calls, great conversation. So really enjoyed that. If people missed that, available on Pirate Radio TV on YouTube. But Holt, you and Caden kind of went over some new head coaching candidates you would take a look at, and also took calls and suggestions from others. And that was a great show.
Yeah, it was fun, man. We're going to start trying to do it, once a quarter or something, just to, have that and have people connect with the show. So it was fun. There's a lot. I mean, it's an exciting time. Look, we're competing for a bowl game still. We're still in contention while also looking for the head coach of who's going to lead the program. So exciting time. That's what, this administration has created. And that's probably what is needed right now.
So on Monday, you talked about Dwayne Ledford and said he could be our Dan Campbell, and I was sold immediately on that. I think I'm going to have like a candidate of the day that I'm excited about. But Dwayne Ledford was definitely Monday evening. But you're kind of going through some guys. Like, have you maybe added anybody to your list since we last talked a couple of days ago? Anybody else intriguing you out there?
I'm big on Coach Ledford. Now, do I think we go get him? That's another story. I hope we do. I think he'd be really good.
Hope
Garrett
so.
Riley is really good. And then, I really like Holton from Western Kentucky. He's a guy that I'm really interested in. The UAB old coach Bill Clark, I'm interested in. I think in the NIL world, if you need to create excitement, I think it's better to go after an ECU alum, but I wouldn't mind going after one of those other two names.
That's a good point because this thing is going to be looked at from the administration and what this new guy can do football wise. You also need to sell tickets. You need to get people excited, and I feel like Holton, a lot of Pirate fans like Pirate football and kind of sometimes ignore what's going on outside of the ECU football bubble, so they don't know. And I'll be honest, I don't know Tyson Helton. I'm just getting to know him this week. I've heard of Clay Helton, but not Tyson Helton. So I'm getting to know these names as well. But you're right. In order to fire up a portion of this fan base, it would have to be a name they know and recognize, which would be a guy with East Carolina ties.
100%. Now, look, like I said, I mean, I'm catching a lot of flack on Twitter because people are like, well, you got to go outside. We post a thing on the Holton Ahlers show, and all the people have ECU connections.
Right.
Now, is that a coincidence? Yes and no. Like Garrett Riley is going to have a ton of coaching offers, whether he's ECU, has been at ECU or not. Joe Sloan, probably the same. Skip Holtz, we posted. I think that's a name that I keep hearing from the donors I've talked to that a lot of these, older donors are really interested in. And then Dwayne Ledford was a name, obviously, that I brought up. But yeah, the Heltons, I think both of them are good coaches. One at Western Kentucky is a little bit more. In fact, let me pull up. I know one of their assistant coaches just through football of some sort. I texted him and asked exactly if I can pull it up. Give me 2 seconds, Clipper. So I texted him and asked just how is he as a coach? How's all that? And I'm going to tell you his response. He said he said he is the best, man. I haven't talked to him about the ECU job, but I'm sure he'd be interested. Just trying to go 1-0 this week. You know how it is, but I will say this: he's a wizard offensively.
Yeah. And offense is something that will fire up this fan base and any fan base. And on that note, Holton, do you? It's just off the top of my head, sounds like the guys you're keying in on are offensive guys, I guess.
Yeah, for the most part. Look, I mean, if you look at most coaching changes around America in the history of college football, they usually go with the opposite of whatever the head coach was that got fired. So if you look at, Coach Houston was a structured military type guy, defensive guy, run the ball guy, older. So I would expect, history shows that they're going to go after a young offensive mind, creative, charismatic, in the play, super good. And that's the era of what this is going to now with NIL and transfer portal. So that's kind of what
Right.
I would expect. Obviously, Garrett Riley and Joe Sloan fit that mold. I think Dwayne Ledford fits the mold in a different way. I just hope he gets a look because I know if he gets an interview, you can feel his passion. He'd be, a lot of people are saying he doesn't have coordinator experience. Well, good thing we're not hiring him to be a coordinator. We're hiring him to be a head coach and to win games here.
Holton Ahlers joining us. Holton, you went through a coaching change, and just like you talked about with the differing styles when there is a firing, we had a young offensive guy in Scotty Montgomery and went to the Mike Houston route. And I've heard you and Miles and the guys talk about the changes in the coach's demeanor, but also the way you practiced and how everything was run. Sounds like this week Blake Harrell is putting his own stamp on things. It is not going to be drastic, overwhelming changes, no, not at all. But it seems like I've talked to some guys that things are going a little bit different. And he says, kind of, if I'm going to get this opportunity to finish out this season as the interim head coach, I want to do it my way. I don't want to do it Mike Houston's way. And that I think can give the team a boost maybe. And look, I think they'll go out and beat Temple on Saturday. But what do you think about that initial boost you get where guys are rallying around their new boss?
100% they're going to. And look, I mean, these seniors want to go out, with a bang. They came into a program that was kind of changing and then experienced, those 2 bowl games and, want to get back to that. I've talked to a couple of the guys and they've experienced that. I mean, look, these seniors don't want to go out and not make a bowl game. They don't want to be remembered as, the class that kind of let it slip once it got flipped over. And making a bowl game certainly, validates, their point there. But Coach Harrell, I mean, why wouldn't you? This is your one chance. You don't know if you'll get another chance to do this. Now, I would, I am a betting man. There's no bets on this, but I would bet that Blake Harrell's back here next year in some fashion. I think he has a chance. Look, if we go win games, he'll have a chance at least get interviewed for the head coaching job. And if he wins games, he's going to have a pretty good resume as the interim head coach, I think. So, it'd be interesting. I think he's the defensive coordinator next year, one way or the other.
Yeah, today John David Baker during his press conference said we're in an offensive meeting, and I said, put your hand up if you've won a bowl game or been to a bowl game, and he said it was you could count them just about on your hand. So not a lot of guys on that side of the ball have won a bowl game. So that right now is the most important thing. You can tell from hearing from Blake Harrell and John David Baker, the narrative is it is all about these players. We want to finish out strong for these players. And it like usually when there's a firing, you're like 0-5, 0-7, 1-6. Like you're right. I mean, we're 3 wins away from going to a bowl game, potentially winning 6-7 games this year.
Yeah, and look, we're probably going to be favored in a lot of them, which is crazy. And I think honestly, that's one of the reasons why they may have gotten rid of Coach Houston at the time they did, is because they knew, look, we will still might win 6 games and make a bowl game, but is that enough? And I think this administration said no. As a collectively, they said no. The donors said no, that wouldn't be enough. So let's go ahead and make the move so we don't look too crazy if we're playing in a bowl game and fire a head coach the next day. So it makes more sense. The timing makes a little bit more sense now. But yeah, I mean, I think you go compete for a bowl game, make this job as attractive as possible to head coaches looking at it.
Holton, we'll get your picks later this week. We'll see if Sergeant Gambles makes another appearance. Man, that guy was tough. He was tough on Chandler and I last week. Headliners this week. I can't believe it, but Vanderbilt's in a headliner. They host Texas. Holton, my immediate thoughts on this is give me Texas minus the points. They're going to roll. This Vanderbilt thing can't be this real. But look, they have shown that they can be in games. They can win games. Almost as impressive as the big upset was what they did. It was the following game, right? They go out and win at Kentucky. So that they are a good football team. Texas is going to be angry. What do you think about that matchup this week?
Yeah, I haven't looked at the points yet, but that is an interesting matchup, man. Vandy has a really good quarterback. He's came in and brought swagger to that school, really, and he's played really well. And then I think it is more impressive going to win at Kentucky because Kentucky wasn't sleeping on them. Alabama, you could say, well, yeah, they weren't prepared. They thought it was going to be a walkover. Well, Kentucky wasn't saying that. And they went and go beat Kentucky. And Kentucky's played some really good teams tight this year. I mean, very, very tight games and even won some of those. So I'm really impressed with them. I'll have to check the points there.
Joe Sloan is a guy on a lot of people's radar. I am a Joe Sloan fan. LSU is taking on Texas A&M in another big game this week. LSU number 8, Texas A&M number 14. And LSU, Coach Mack brought up a good point on Pirate Radio Live. This is why you can't write off teams early. Remember week 1, LSU loses to USC, A&M loses to Notre Dame, and we just kind of forget about those two teams for a month or two. Here they are with a huge opportunity to put their name in the playoff race, and I believe we have the first playoff rankings coming out very soon.
It is typical Brian Kelly fashion. He hasn't won an opener game at LSU since he's gotten there, but ever since the opening game, they just continue to win and climb up the rankings. So, yeah, that's what they've done. They've ignored the noise, and now they're sitting in themselves. And look, the SEC is going to beat up on each other. That's what they're doing now. If LSU can continue to win and sneak into those rankings, then I'd expect to see them in the playoffs.
Holton Ahlers joining us. Boy, this is dangerous, but I'm not going to brag because I missed. I went 1 out of 2 last night. But I hit first basket, Jason Tatum first basket. I hope I don't get
gosh.
But Celtics hammered the Knicks last night, Holt. Only 81 games left. Are you nervous about your Knicks this year?
I don't feel great about it. I don't love the Karl Anthony Towns trade. I think it was kind of pointless. He plays soft as a big man, so he's going to have to prove his worth. McCall Bridges, I was a little worried about. Like, he had the yips first half, then he eventually changed it around. But Karl Anthony Towns is going to have to change something. I mean, he's going to have to play like a big man and not like a shooting guard, or we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I don't know if he can change his stripes at this point. Holt Naylor's joining us. Holt, good stuff. So, this week's pod is the Monday show that is available right now on YouTube, correct?
Yep, that's it for this week. We felt like we got everything off our chest. Let the fans talk a little bit, so it's up on YouTube right now and all podcast platforms as well.
All right, well, we'll see you Saturday after ECU and Temple. Will catch up with you on the pregame show as well, as all week long is kind of going to be big picture. Saturday, kind of looking forward to Saturday. We'll break down ECU and Temple more than just kind of what's going on the sidelines and in the front office, so to speak. But looking forward to that, Holt. We'll catch up with you this weekend.
Yes, sir. Glad to be back, Clip. See you then.